think we're good. I made a mistake briefly, and that was just my random screensaver, or not screensaver, wallpaper. Still one of my favorite wallpapers. I really should gather a couple more so that it cycles through a few. I used to have a big list of wallpapers that I would cycle through, and I lost all of those when I lost my PC a couple times, which kind of bummed me out a little bit. It remembers this one at least. Alright, so tonight we might actually have a very short night depending on how many stories we have left. Let me briefly check, because here's the thing. I've actually been really busy, and I haven't actually been able to ask any new authors for permissions yet, so our list of stories that we can read is a bit smaller than it usually is. But smaller doesn't necessarily mean shorter. And I'm hoping that we still have enough to make the full 3 hours. Hold up. Cat. Bart! I just heard plates shifting, and I really need to make sure that Bart can't get into trouble, like he is very constantly doing. Yeah, that's true. It'd take a while to get through all of that, though. You're at, what, 31, 38 chapters in? Something like that. At least one book. The problem that I always have with something like longer form stories is that I am terrible at making new voices. Bart, were you causing trouble? Elsa was certainly causing trouble, to the point where I actually ended up yelling at her by... Okay, I'll be honest, it was on purpose, just to get her off my PC. After she walked on top of the PC, hit the reset button, and then immediately ran off. Which is why I went out and got some super glue. So now I have some super glue, and I am going to be using it on some button caps to put on the top of the PC, because I didn't want to wait for more adhesive. But that'll happen after the stream. So how are you today, Dr. Blackjack? Oh, okay. Bart, what are you doing? Also, I want to see how Elsa reacts to her new toy. Hey, Elsa. You like the new toy? Oh no. Bart, did you already break it? Well, it was a new toy. I think that Bart may have already broken it. That didn't take very long. Thankfully, the toy wasn't that expensive, like $20, but still, that'd be a new record for Bart. Bart has a talent for breaking his toys. Good God. I guess it's a good thing I've got a lot of them. All right. Who's ready for some stories? Actually, I'm going to use the other one. Yep, here we are. What do we have? Death by Magical Court, which I know is a two-parter. Mercy of the Fae is another one of Dr. Blackjack's. Of Men and Ghost Ships is one of his. I don't know what Well is Dumb. Well, That Was Dumb is from Humans Are Galactic Cryptids. Do Not Corner Them. Galgamos, are you in chat today? I don't know if Galgamos is in chat. Okay. Let's roll. Mercy of the Fae, written by Dr. Blackjack. Okay. Give me one moment. Just gonna get the vocal cords ready. Also, ended up getting a little bit of feedback, actually, from one of the authors on just something that I can look out for while editing, which is great because I'm very happy about that. Any feedback that I can get is an improvement in the future. Okay, here we go. The Mercy of the Fae by Dr. Blackjack 21. The Mercy of the Fae. Sianach was in a real bind. He'd always been known for his curiosity and cleverness, but this time the curiosity of his He'd always been known for his curiosity and cleverness, but this time that curiosity had landed him in some serious trouble. The trinket he'd found had clearly belonged to the Elder Fae. Knowing that, he hadn't intended to do something stupid like steal it or break it. He just meant to give it a little look. Now, he was trapped. Somehow, Fae magic had captured him and wouldn't let him go. His head was encircled by some translucent force field. It was almost invisible, but it caused just enough distortion to give him a headache. What was worse, it trapped his breath. It seemed to allow just enough air to flow that he wasn't allowed to suffocate, but most of the air he breathed in was the hot, sticky air he'd breathed out a moment ago. And the only thing he could smell anymore was his own breath. Gross. The real danger lay in his inability to pass food or water through the magic. Whatever transgression Sianach had committed, he hadn't thought it was deserving of a slow and agonizing death by thirst. But that was the way of the Fae. They were strange and cruel. They were as likely to give the gift of food as they were to condemn you to death over some minor infraction, only they seemed to perceive. None of Sianach's friends or family could help. At first, they'd been curious, but as his distress became evident, they cried and pulled at the strange trinket to no avail. Through the field encompassing his head, their voices sounded twisted and distorted, making them sound like the banshee cries of the Fae. Thinking quickly, Sianach realized that there was only one chance left. If this was the magic of the Elder Fae, then only the Fae could remove it. So, with a confidence born of the realization that this was his only chance left... I'm going to start that one over. Thinking quickly, Sianach realized that this was... Bad news. Be better. Thinking quickly, Sianach realized there was only one chance left. If this was the magic of the Elder Fae, then only the Fae could remove it. So, with a confidence born of the realization that this was his only chance at life, Sianach set out on a journey to find a Fae, or die trying. The problem was, there was no guarantee they would help him if he should find one. When a Fae offered you food, sometimes it was given as a gift with no strings attached, but other times the recipient was whisked away into the night. Some never returned. Some were dropped off impossibly far from where they'd been stolen. Others were barely missed before they came back. But you could always tell the victim of the Fae when they returned. They were forever changed. There was a haunted look in their eyes that never went away completely. Sometimes they'd become obsessed with the Fae, forever looking to follow them into their magnificent halls and join in their decadent feasts. Others developed a deep fear of the Fae and would jump and cower at any unexpected noise forevermore. But Sianach had little choice. He simply had to hope luck was on his side this night, and he'd find one that was benevolent rather than, well, that was best not thought about. No problem, Dr. Blackjack. As his long journey continued, Sianach was getting tired and thirsty, but he dared not lay down and rest. If he gave up now, he might never awaken. As tired as he was, Sianach felt a flare of hope when he found a trail left by the Fae. There was no mistaking one of their trails. They were lined by stones of unearthly quality. Everything about these trails looked, felt, and even smelled wrong. It was a clear message that no one not of their world was welcome there. If you absolutely had to cross a Fae trail, it was best done as quickly and silently as possible. The Fae rode up and down the trails with wild abandon. Their mounts had fierce, glowing eyes, breath that smelled of smoke and fire, and their cries sounded as if the very devil was on the hunt. If anyone was unlucky enough to find themselves in the path of one of the wild hunts, there was no mercy to be found. They were trampled to death, and their bodies were left as a warning to everyone else, as if to say, "This is Faeland, and only the Fae are welcome here." Sianach's mother had made sure to show him one such body when he was still very young. He'd never forgotten the reek of death, and the memory haunted him all the more at this moment. Sianach had no intention of crossing the path and incurring their wrath, and perhaps if he wandered close enough to it, he'd eventually stumble upon a Fae willing to help. Sianach's journey had failed. He was past his limit and simply didn't have the strength to go on. As he laid by the side of the path, he contemplated how absurd this all was. He was doomed to die for something as simple as a little innocent curiosity. It just wasn't fair. That was when Sianach noticed something in the light reflecting through the magic. Even distorted, he could hear a voice that clearly belonged to one of the elder Fae. It lacked the sharp, crisp sounds of a normal voice and instead rumbled and meandered as it morphed from one sound to another. Cats. It's always cats. Lucius, what are you doing here? This is way too late for you. What are you doing? I'm going to have to restart that anyway because the cats interrupted me. Elsa, why are you growling at Bart? He's done nothing wrong. Well, he broke your new toy, but other than that. You're fine. Just, I'm surprised to see you. Okay, where was I? That was when Sianach noticed movement in the light reflecting through the magic. Even distorted, he could hear a voice that clearly belonged to one of the elder Fae. It lacked the sharp, crisp sounds of a normal voice and instead rumbled and meandered as it morphed from one sound into another with barely any hesitation. It was as if the thing striding towards him didn't need to pause for breath as it sang. Sianach was suddenly filled with terror. This was a dark Fae. He knew it. It was obviously here to mock him in the end, or maybe make his last moments that much more organizing. He struggled to get to his feet, but he was too heavy, thirsty, and tired. He was barely able to bat weakly at the giant Fae as it grabbed hold of him. The strength of this monster was beyond Sianach's comprehension. The amount of power behind each finger was more than Sianach had in his entire arm. All it would take was the slightest squeezes or a quick twist, and he would be dead. As he feared, the fingers began to squeeze, but just as Sianach feared his bones would start to crack, they stopped. It was a firm grip, and not at all comfortable, but Sianach could tell the Fae was being oddly careful as it held him. Then the giant started pulling at the trinket which held him captive. As the trinket began to move, it got caught on Sianach's ears. He was starting to fear they'd be torn from his head, when with a sudden pop the cursed thing came free. Sianach could finally hear, smell, and see once more. But perhaps that was the last cruel trick of the Fae. He was free at last, but too weak to do anything other than lie down and die. Sianach would have cried if he had had any water left for tears. That was when the Fae turned and rummaged through one of the mysterious packs some of them liked to carry. Sianach didn't have long to wonder what he was looking for, because soon the Fae pulled out a beautiful crystal container filled with glorious water. Then his mysterious savior took out a sheet of wood and bent and twisted it into an odd bowl, which he filled with water from the crystal vial. Sianach hesitated a moment, remembering the tales of those whisked away from the Fae by the sin of accepting an offered gift. But he was in no position to reject that which was before him. He took a careful sip. This was the purest, most wonderful water he had ever had in his life. Slowly at first, and then with increasing eagerness, Sianach drank his fill. Though he kept a close eye on the Fae as he did so, he only stopped when his benefactor flashed its teeth in warning. Perhaps he'd gone too far and pushed the patience of this great being. Best to not hang around and find out. With the energy born at the second chance at life, Sianach rose to his feet and retreated away from the dreaded path. He was expecting to be grabbed at any moment, but made it to the tree line without the Fae moving from his spot. Sianach looked back at his savior. He was more grateful than he could express, but all he could do was bark out his gratitude before retreating back into the forest. Sianach is a squirrel, isn't he? Or a cat. Oh, it's a fox. Eric watched the poor little fox retreat into the tree line. He had come across the thing with its head stuck in a bottle. It had been too tired to escape, so he'd taken the chance to pull the bottle off and free the little guy. Even then, the fox didn't get up and run away like it should have. With a sinking feeling, Eric rummaged through his backpack, looking for his half-drunken plastic water bottle. Not having a cup, he folded a sheet of paper into a makeshift bowl and filled it with water. When the fox first began to drink, Eric noted how weak he seemed, but eventually the little animal seemed to regain his strength, and it brought a smile to his face. Right then, the fox started away. While Eric was sad to see him go so soon, he was happy to see it feeling so much better. Once it got to the tree line, the fox looked back and let out the cutest little yip before disappearing. As Eric cleaned up the mess and continued walking home from school, he did so with pride, knowing he'd made the world a little better for at least one little creature. Sianach's garlic for fox. I was wondering about that. Gaelic. Yeah, because I recognized that the word was Gaelic, but I didn't know what it meant. You can tell it wasn't really a fae because nothing horrible happened? Yeah. But it could have happened. All right. So that was The Mercy of the Fae by our local Dr. Blackjack. How are you doing, Paper Dupless and Lucius? Hopefully I'm not keeping you up too much, Lucius. I don't want you to end up having to sleep in tomorrow and then miss something. He's home. We got to the end. I did end up figuring out that Cianach was not a human before it happened, but literally only a couple of words before it happened. Or before it was revealed. I also did catch on that the name was in Gaelic, but I wasn't sure what the Gaelic translated to. I mean, they're a good thing to hide meaning in. A lot of people don't realize the meaning of a lot of names. You know your own limits very well, and you're doing good. I'm doing pretty well. I'm hoping that we might actually end up seeing a couple more authors today. I know that Galgamos wanted to be around for his story, or her story, their story. We'll go with their story. I'm not going to make any assumptions. And then we might end up seeing Son of Scion under whatever name they use on Twitch. Right? Son of Scion, by the way, was... What did they do? Oh, that was the Humans Started It from last time. That was the really short one with the people that were just like... Or the troops that decided their general was more deserving of death than they were. All right. I think that we should still have enough stories, by the way, to just go through all of these. I'm actually really looking forward to Tales from a Gas Station. Hey, Bart, what you doing? I've got you. I've got a cat. I've got a cat, and he's in my lap, and he is being very cute. So if anyone wants to select anything else, feel free. But right now... Oh yeah, cats definitely need their cat attention. I mentioned this earlier, but Elsa ended up restarting my PC. And I actually, I'm so glad that I went out and got some super glue, because now I can super glue the goddamn button lids to the buttons. And they'll never come off. Right, Elsa. They'll never come off, and you'll never be able to press the buttons on the PCs again. You brat. I actually got really mad when she restarted it, because she's been doing that a lot this weekend. And at this point, I'm pretty sure it actually is intentional, because she's just pressing buttons. Probably. She knows what a power button looks like. We're all doomed. All she has to do is get to whatever war robot we're using against the Cat Empire and press the power button. Eventually, we'll just have to remove the power buttons entirely. And then what will we do when the robot uprising occurs? Revenge for allowing Bart to live there. Yeah. I really wish that she liked Bart a little bit more, but she's honestly very grumpy about having Bart here. I don't know if you guys heard them growling at each other. Well, I don't know if you heard Elsa growling at Bart. Moral of the story, humans are doomed. Yeah, but we were already doomed. We'll likely kill ourselves off before the cats manage to. Or we end up engineering cats to have thumbs and, well, I mean, what are you going to do then? The cats can open their own cans. They don't need us anymore. They can operate the food generating stuff. Look at you. Bartzel's stretched out on my lap. Hopefully we'll get a Jade before a Hal. Hopefully. That was actually really rewarding to just listen to. For those who don't know, I do a lot of the editing for the previous story nights on Sundays and Saturdays. So pretty much all of yesterday ended up being just me editing stuff whenever I wasn't streaming. I got it done, but oh god, that took a while. I mean, it's just a ton of mistakes. I want to train myself so that I don't make as many mistakes, but it's really hard when you haven't read a story before. All right. Yep, I figured. All right. I was kind of hoping that we would get Puzzled Kitty in chat. For those who don't know, Puzzled Kitty is Galgamos. Yeah, if you are interested, hold up. I have the actual link to it. If you are interested in going back through it, there you go. AI story by Dr. Blackjack 21. However, that is not what we are reading right now. Right now, we are reading Do Not Corner Them. Oh, before I start this, I just want to make sure that I know how long this is. Oh, right. Okay, yes, this is the first. So Galgamos wanted me to actually read this as a certain way. So this is A Feral Universe Story 1. Do Not Corner Them. By... Let me try that again. This is A Feral Universe Story 1 by... I cannot express the depths of the disappointment within myself. Okay. This is A Feral Universe Story 1. Do Not Corner Them by Puzzled Kitty, aka Galgamos. Do not corner a human. Do not kill a human who has surrendered. Do not honor a captured human soldier as you would a captured Gora soldier. This is what I advise to be taught after the recent Battle of the Bear. Named after one of their homeworld's predators that is not unlike our Gorma in almost all but appearance, the name was chosen to honor those human soldiers who died there. Honoring them in the traditional sense did not go over well. We won the engagement. Many believe we have won the war. But, in a way, it was their victory over the Gora. They taught us to adhere to their laws of war, and they taught us that to them, a war is not the same as a fight. This is military and naval advisor Braun, chosen by the General's Council of the Gora to record a brief warning for all troops and fleet commanders. Take its essence and convey it to your troops. Use the video material provided if necessary. We Gora are stronger than humans, if only just. We Gora are much faster than humans, if only for a few hundred strides. Our decisive melee strikes are too quick for them to see. Our reaction time is on the same level as theirs. We can see and smell better than them. Even in our hunched stance, we are almost as tall as them, and when poised for combat, we tower at least a stride over their heads. Our bodies can last longer without fluid, or air intake. But humanity is a strange beast. For their blunt teeth, lack of claws, and despite their frontal eyes, the General's Council thought them prey. We were wrong. As you know, the Gorma is a massive predator. I know I'm repeating something that you are all well aware of. Even if you never had to face one of... Let me try that again. As you know, the Gorma is a massive predator. I know, I am repeating something that you are all well aware of, even if you never had to face one yourself. Yet it needs to be spoken for the sake of comparison. A bear from G64 is slower, weaker, and far less resilient than a Gorma. But unlike a Gorma, which falls and submits once its thick plating is pierced, a bear will continue fighting for up to 30 beats after its sole circulatory organ, its heart, is destroyed. A bear would die in a fight against a Gorma, but it would also kill its opponent long after its demise. But it would also kill its opponents long after its demise would have become a certainty. This is why it is named the Battle of the Bear. Do not corner a human. Do not make a human believe that all is lost. Do not make a human think that their only chance for survival is over your drying corpse. When you have to corner a human, give them enough room and do your best to offer them their unharmed survival. If they surrender, most will. If they reject the offer or fail to understand, shell them from afar, as dishonorable as they may feel to you. Shell them from afar, as dishonorable as this may feel to you. Do not, under any circumstances, go for traditional melee. I repeat this for clarity. Do not charge humans in the traditional melee to end the engagement. When a human has surrendered, cow your instincts into submission and do not maim them. As harsh as it may be, control yourself. Let them surrender whole. I repeat, do not maim them. Remove their weapons and put them in the brig. The General Council has initiated the production of vehicles and ships with holding cells for the sole purpose of retaining and transporting captured humans. And, once you have them in your power, do not treat them as you would a hostile Gura. Do not maim and consume them. To them, this is not an act of honor, but of barbarism. They see the consumption of an enemy's soldier's limbs as an act of survival. They have different beliefs than we do. They do not see the honor in nurturing a stronger being with their own body and surviving to tell the tale. Troop commanders, fleet commanders, should a single soldier under your command treat this advice as a mere suggestion, show them all the video footage I provided. Show them how a single unit of human soldiers who saw their allies maimed and honored broke out of their shackles by dislocating their own bones. Show them how the same unit destroyed most of our nearby outposts. Show them the footage of how a single human soldier killed 3 Gora in armed combat, lost an arm, and one of their only 2 eyes, and then proceeded to kill another 5 before succumbing to their wounds. Show them how one of them overloaded a shuttle core near our barracks, killing not only themselves but also 248 Gora troops. Show them how a human whose body was pierced and seared by a maiming lance used the remaining beats of their life and their bare hands to tear the head off a soldier who had killed them. Do not corner a human. Drill this into your soldiers' minds, no matter how many instincts you have to cow into submission. The General's Council will offer them peace within one of their weeks. Until then, contrary to prior orders, adhere to what we understand to be their laws of war. We may have won the conflict according to our customs, but despite its wounds, despite its losses, despite us piercing its heart, humanity is still very much a bear, and it does not believe the fight to be over until the dark takes it. Pray to the hunt that we can make peace before then. Yep. I can say that last week, AI Dream was the highlight of the entire week. I really enjoyed doing that one and editing this. Also, this was pretty good. I'm curious what the other stories on this are. All right. What have we got next? A bunch of shorter ones today. I'll probably just go until 9 because it took me so long to edit last week that I'm just going to try and keep it shorter. Ah, Death by Magical Court. This is a multi-part one by Slightly Assholic. I believe it's a 3-parter, if I remember right. Let me just make sure on that before we start. Oh, there's the 3rd part, and okay, yeah, it's a 3-parter. Elsa, what are you doing? Hold up. I'll be right back. I'm gonna turn on the cat toy and see if she goes for it. Well, I can tell you she's not going for it, but Bart is. Bart didn't break the toy. It's just actually tuned so that at the slightest touch it stops moving. All right, so this was actually based on a writing prompt that was also mentioned by, what was the writer? Sarah Blackwell, quite a few story nights ago. Okay, so the writing prompt is, you have been sentenced to death in a magical court. The court allows all prisoners to pick how they die, and they will carry it out immediately. You have it all figured out until one prisoner before you picks old age and is instantly transformed into a dying old man. Your turn approaches. The other story, if anyone is interested, is the Trial of Saint Grania, which I might as well throw up. Where is it? It's in here somewhere. The Martyrdom of Saint Grania. Here we are. If anyone is at all interested in the other story that was written with this writing prompt. When our worlds collided, we were unprepared for magic. All of our technology was useless against the elves and their sorcerers, or the dwarves and their powerful enchantments, or the orcs and their shamans. You would think that bullets, tanks, and fighter jets would carry the day easy, but no. Not even nukes did squat. Oh, nukes worked fine, but then some dwarf would come along and purify the soil, an elf would restore nature, and a fucking orc shaman would summon the spirits of the dead back to the living world. Soon, our world was just another part of their overrealm. And mankind? Without magic, we were nothing. Less than nothing. Not even slaves. We were livestock, literally livestock, to be bartered and traded and consumed. If you were lucky, you were given to the orcs who would just eat you. And there was a simple honesty in that, far better than having your life force drained by the elves to power their infernal technology, or worked to death in the dwarven mines by where your enchanted chains turned you into nothing but a meat puppet, denying you any peace of death as your corpse continued to labor until your very bones turned to dust. A few of us were able to escape to the wilderness, sometimes by strength, sometimes by guile, mostly by luck. We were a pitiful band, but we managed to survive by lurking in the shattered places, areas warped by the collision of worlds and the magics used in the Great War that broke us. Not much grew there. Well, nothing that you would want to eat anyway. So we resorted to raids, where we would swoop down on the unwary, waylay a wagon, or sneak onto a farm. We didn't have magic, but a club worked just fine. A gun worked too, if they didn't see you coming. Oh, their wizards, enchanters, and shamans were stupidly, unfairly powerful. But some average pointier, stubby, or a greenie, they died just as easy as anyone else. We did okay, but eventually we hit the wrong wagon and killed the wrong pointier. Their cousin's brother's roommate in elf college, or whatever, was some minor what's-it, and that was that. It didn't take long. They had all of us wrapped up nicely. I figured they would just fry us in one of their soul trees, or whatever they called them, but that pointier decided to have some fun with us. He had some of those goddamn soul trees all hooked up in some weird pattern and stuffed them with people, laughing at them, saying that we were their very soul, or saying that we were why their very souls would be devoured, and then made them thank us for ending their suffering. God, I hated him for that. Then he said that since each of us thought ourselves their equal, which we didn't, we could receive their punishment. Each of us could choose how we died, and the trees would grant our wish. He then sat on a throne made of twisted living human flesh, and laughed as each of us either tried to come up with an escape, a paradox, or at least tried to make the death as pleasant as possible. Whatever wish anyone came up with was granted, in the worst way possible. I was halfway through the line, watching each of us get fucked over once again. Soon as I was second in line, just behind Mark, and wouldn't you know it, that sorry mother stole my idea. "I wish to die of old age," he said hopefully. That damn pointier laughed hard that time and waved his hand. Mark turned into a rapidly vibrating blur, screaming with an impossibly high-pitched voice. I watched in horror as he screamed, unable to move, blurring ever faster and faster. Then he started to age. They were forcing that poor son of a bitch to live out his entire life standing in place, right there over just a few minutes for us. But for him, it was decades. Finally, it was over, and Mark fell, withered and gray, to the ground. And now it's my turn. That goddamn pointier is sitting there smiling at me. He laughs, fucking laughs at me. "Go ahead," he snickers. "Choose." No, I hate him. I hate all of them. I hate the elves. I hate the dwarves. I hate those fucking orcs. I hate this world and any gods that let this happen to us. I want them all gone. Suddenly it hits me. I know what to do. Our technology was worthless against them. But our science? We knew things that even that pointier lord didn't know. Things he wouldn't know how to stop or twist or pervert. I grinned at him. "Well, meat?" he sneered. "Could I say something first?" I asked, gleefully building within the glee building within me. "Why not?" he chuckled, to the amusement of all the elves who had gathered to watch the latest entertainment. "I would like to tell all of you that it's been a lot of fun," I say, breaking into a manic giggle. "But now playtime is over. You probably won't know it, but mankind just kicked your ass. I'm now ready to choose. Your impertinence will be justly rewarded, meat. Old Pointy Ears snickers at me. Choose. I choose. I giggle. Death by false vacuum decay. Pointy Ears is looking really confused right now. He's not sure how to handle this. You don't mean you don't know what a false vacuum is? I sneer, laughing. Even we lowly humans know about that. Of course I know what it is, Pointy Ears snaps and starts to wave his hand. I laugh and extend my middle finger one last time. I don't actually know what a false vacuum decay is. Hold up, there's a YouTube video. Oh god, it's a Kurzgesagt video. That makes me nervous. Bet you didn't. Okay, part 2. What is it? Screamed the elegant elf god, wreathed with flowers and glowing light as he threw raw mana against the blinding white wall pressing towards him. Taste cold iron, foul sorcery! The stout dwarf god, clad in mithril armor inscribed with glowing runes, as he heaved his mighty axe above his head. He swung down with a mighty blow, the divine enchantments cleaving the very air, the very essence of air, cleaving mana itself. The axe had disappeared into the glowing wall, leaving him with only the smoldering half. Mandarinor! The dwarf bellowed, his eyes glowing with despair and rage. I can't find them, the old orcish hag goddess cried out, weaving the mother bones in front of her. Their souls are gone! All of them gone! They must be trapped behind this ward, the elf god yelled, pulling forth an ebon orb containing the trapped souls of millions. Yeah, that's not going to work, a voice said behind them, followed by a munching noise. The trio turned to behold a naked Homo erectus sitting in a lounge chair with a bowl of popcorn in his lap. Be gone, animal, the elf hissed. Behold the power of the mighty Elvaran. The orb crackled, glowing a hellish red hue, screaming with the voices of the countless damned. A huge crimson bolt shot forward, wreathed with beautiful elven script, striking the glowing wall with the force of 100,000 thunderbolts. Ooh, the hominid enthused. Very pretty. Too bad it didn't do shit. The glowing wall advanced steadily as the naked hominid munched happily. It's devouring the entire overrealm. Is it? The hominid said, leaning forward. Yeah, these things kind of do that. To be fair, I did warn you, the hominid chuckled. I told you not to fuck with them. You did this, the orcish hag goddess shrieked, pointing her bony fingers at the ape men. Release their souls or face my wrath. No can do, bitch face, the hominid chuckled. Your precious souls are kind of, well, it would be difficult to explain to morons like you. The TLDR is that you ain't getting them back. Not from this side, anyway. The hominid grinned. You are, of course, welcome to go in there after them if you want, he said, followed by another handful of popcorn. Don't be foolish, the god of the elves said to the hag goddess as he summoned demon after demon to push against the wall, each one lasting only moments before bursting into flames. The puny human god knows no magic. I never said that, the hominid said, idly picking at one of his feet. I just said that I didn't use it. The whole magic thing is kind of stupid. I mean, I go through all the trouble of setting up this nice universe, and then I'm going to give just any mortal the ability to fuck with it? No, thank you. If some mortal is going to fuck up my universe, they need to be exceptional. Like one particular asshole that comes to mind. The glorious bastard. The hominid got up, moved his lawn chair back several yards, and then sat back down. The cheap plastic webbing was starting to melt. Besides, everyone screwing with reality plays holy hell with your omniscience. What good is being able to predict the path of every single particle in the universe if trillions of assholes keep wiggling them? It keeps you from foreseeing shit just like this. The hominid laughed. I don't use magic, so I was able to get a good seat for the show. He grinned. You totally missed it. It was really fucking cool. You could actually watch reality unravel in real time. I always loved that. The dwarf god summoned a mighty hammer. Oh, hang on, the hominid said as he gripped the arms of his chair and kicked off with his feet, landing hundreds of meters away, the popcorn miraculously remaining in the bowl. Okay, he shouted from the distance. Let it rip! The dwarven glyphs swirled around Destiny's hammer as the dwarf god smote the ever-advancing wall, triggering a massive explosion as the hammer detonated. Yeah, that's not going to work either. I can't stop it, the elf god shouted as he wove reality-shattering magics. I can only slow its advance. It's so cute that you think that you're the only one slowing it down. I'm sorry. It's so cute that you think you're the one slowing it down. The Ulfa realm is lost, the elf god yelled. We must save the celestial realm. No, the orc hag wailed. My souls! We must save ourselves and our realm, the dwarf god gasped as he struggled to his feet, his armor blackened, the glowing glyphs guttering out. Dude, that is some bitchin' armor. I thought you were dead. The elf god, orc god, and dwarf god turned to the glowing wall and fled. Or turned from the glowing wall and fled. The glowing wall spreading and advancing behind them, devouring everything in its path, wreathing them in scorching flames, almost, but not quite, overtaking them, as the popcorn-munching ape-man laughed, his eyes faintly glowing. The three gods reached a glowing portal and ran through it only to find the hominid sitting in his lawn chair on the other side. Begone, ape, the elf god sneered. Go join your worshippers as they all burn. Sure thing, chief, the naked hominid said, standing up and carefully folding his chair. Make haste, animal, the dwarf god yelled, drawing yet another ornate axe. I'm moving, the hominid said as he ambled past. And put that down before I fuck you with it. As the naked hominid, silhouetted by the unraveling reality behind him, walked through the gate, he extended a single finger, snagging a wisp of the celestial realm and dragging it through the portal with him, sticking it in his mouth. I can't close the portal, the elf god cried in terror. How curious, the naked hominid said through clenched teeth, the wisp of their reality stuck between them. It's him, the orc hag screeched. He cast a spell, I can see it. She screamed as her eyes glowed. Technically, the hominid grinned, his teeth still clenched. I didn't, but yeah, I'm not going to let that portal close. Sorry. Then you will die, the dwarf god bellowed as he charged. Bitch slap. The dwarf god was sent flying, bouncing off the edge of the portal and landing in a crumpled heap. The hominid sighed, walking over to the dwarf god's axe and picked it up. Now, what did I tell you I was going to do with this? Oh, hey, Somek. How you doing? Splattered with blood, the elf god and the hag goddess backed away in horror. I actually sort of regret doing that, the hominid said, as the blood covering him steamed in searing heat of the hellish fireball, drawing ever closer. I do really need to be more careful with my idle threats. He glanced down at the impaled dwarf god, the bloody haft of his axe sticking out of his mouth. Yeah, the hominid added. If either of you throws another spell at me, I won't fuck you with anything, but you will suffer an unpleasant fate to be determined at the time of my annoyance. Okay, kids, the hominid sighed as he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around the necks of the two remaining gods. Let's go watch the world burn. As he dragged the pair through the portal, he glanced down at the dwarf god. Sorry, dude, the hominid said. I'd bring you too, but you're kind of gross. But don't worry, I didn't want you to miss the show. I've slowed down time around you, so you will be able to truly appreciate the rather unique experience that you have the privilege of enjoying. Later. As the naked ape dragged the two remaining gods through the portal, his fist shot out, smashing the portal's walls and tearing a permanent hole between the two realms. What are you? The elven god gasped as the fireball spilled over into their divine heaven. Oh, nothing, the hominid chuckled. Just the filthy animal god of the humans, that's all. Oh, that mountain over there will give us a great view of your entire universe going away. Grabbing the two gods by the neck, he jumped, covering the vast distance in a moment. He released his two captives and set up his folding lawn chair, which he always had, and sat, putting the bowl of popcorn, which he also was always holding, in his lap. Yeah, this is a nice spot. You can really see that nice crystal palace over there vaporized nicely. He looked back at the elf. That yours? Doesn't really seem like Bitchface's style. The elf god just looked at him, shaking. Just in case you're wondering, the hominid said as he put another handful of popcorn from the bottomless bowl in his mouth, I'm tossing both of you in that fireball when the show is over. Oh, look at all those little dudes trying to run, he snickered. The elf god threw a divinely sharp dagger, poisoned with the venom of the eternal worm, and plunged it into the hominid's back. Or tried to. The naked ape man idly waved his hand, and both of the elf god's femurs shattered. Now behave and let me enjoy this, the hominid said, not even bothering to look back. This is actually very rare, because I don't build crap, and I haven't gotten to see one grow from 0.0 in quite some time. If I have to look away once more, your last moments will go from extremely unpleasant to extremely unpleasant. We were just a joke to you, the hag goddess whispered, tears forming in her bloodshot eyes. Yeah, pretty much. You could have stopped us whenever you wanted. Yep. And you let it happen? Yeah, kind of a dick that way. To your own people, your worshippers. I've had a lot of worshippers, the hominid shrugged. They come and they go. I don't need them like you scrubs. I just like them. You could have saved them, she gasped in true horror. And deny them their moment of glory? The hominid said, actually looking back at the hag. What sort of monster do you take me for? The hag fell silent in uncomprehending horror. The hominid cocked his head. Far in the distance he heard weeping. Oh, there was plenty of weeping and screaming and a shitload of praying, but this was an entity. He missed one. Can't let that happen. He looked away from the glorious human expression of pure hate and rage. Damn, he was going to miss those assholes. And looked down. Darting among the flames was a luminous woman with deer features. You know, like a furry. He was really going to miss humans. They were hilarious. She was grabbing every animal she could, her robes aflame, and stuffing them inside her, weeping and crying out for help. God damn it, the hominid grumbled. He stood and waved his hand. The fireball stopped its advance, frozen in time. To quote the man of the hour, the hominid said as he turned to his two captives, it's been a lot of fun, but now playtime is over. Let's see. I know. The hominid's eyes flashed. You gods are eternal, right? Enjoy forever. Quick question. Do you know what casually disconnected means? No? You like it. It's fun. A pair of defeated gods disappeared. I kind of regret that, too. The hominid shrugged and put on a bathrobe. That was always draped over the back of the chair? Oh, the glowing deer woman cried out. My children, don't worry. It's okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Actually, it is. A strange animal man dressed in a thick robe said behind her. I know not who you are, she cried desperately, but please, if you have the power, please help me save my children. I just so happen to have that exact power, the hominid smiled. Relax, Toots. We have all the time we need. Finally, part 3. A massive gout of orange flame shot from a cave entrance high in the dragon spire, high above the celestial realm. Yeah, a voice echoed from the cave. I use supernovas as mouthwash. That ain't gonna do shit. The reply was a booming angry roar and another blast of flame, brighter and hotter. Damn, the voice echoed. That was pretty good, but check this out. A tremendous blue-white blast shot forth, filling the entire cave mouth, instantly liquefying the walls, causing molten lava to pour out. Roar off in the distance. Yeah, I thought so. Now, carry your ass outside. Do I look like a fucking porter? I ain't carrying shit. Well, that's not my problem. Oh, not leaving without it. Well, I guess I could put in your prison pocket for you. What's a prison pocket? Let me enlighten you. Hold still. What? What? You don't need it after all. Great. Move. Moments later, a titanic dragon emerged sheepishly from the cave and hid behind the faintly glowing deer woman, whispering urgently in her ear. I'm sorry, sweetie, she crooned, stroking its nose, but we really have to go. He tried to stick what, where? She looked up accusingly at the bathrobe-clad Homo erectus, ambling out of the cave, pausing to push his foot into some lava, leaving a print. Just what is it with you and bottoms? She demanded. Physics. How does your sorcery apply to this nonsense? It's not sorcery, it's one of the universal natural laws. The ape-man chuckled. Everything seeks its lowest energy state, but every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And if someone is being difficult, threaten to shove everything up their ass. If they seem into it, show them something bigger. It's the universal motivator. It's simple physics. I think it's awfully rude. Well, the hominid said, strolling up to her. Has it failed thus far? No. See, the hominid replied. Universal motivator. Physics. Is that the last one? Is that the last one? The ape-man asked as Fawn comforted the rather shaken dragon. Yes, she sighed as her dappled cape magically extended, covering the gigantic beast, and then retracting, leaving no trace of the ancient worm. What? It's just... She sighed, tears welling in her eyes. There were just so many I couldn't save. So many. I know that that was war. I do. And I don't blame you for doing whatever that is. She stammered, gesturing to the massive moon-sized black sphere dominating the realm. Time has stopped around it, therefore all emissions from the impossibly bright and hot sphere have ceased. Actually, the hominid replied, I didn't do that. One of my humans did. he said proudly. Crazy fucker went and did something crazy. Even I left those fuckers alone. He pointed at the gigantic black sphere. Because they will do stuff like that. The elves, dwarves, and orcs aren't the first sapiens that those murderous assholes wiped out. Not by a long shot. I don't even want to know what happened to my actual favorites. Which might be one of the reasons why I let you guys have them. God, they were assholes, he added fondly. Tears began to flow down Fawn's cheeks. I confess I don't understand. But I believe you, kind God. She looked down. But regardless of the reason, she wept. I lost so many. But with your aid, I was able to save so many others. Thank you. Yeah? The ape man shrugged. Life's a bitch sometimes, he said, trying to ignore the constant whimpering and fearful murmurs radiating from Fawn. Where's Mommy? A frightened little voice squeaked through the ether. Your Mommy, Fawn silently replied as tears rolled down her cheek. Your Mommy isn't here right now. She's fine, dear. I'm scared. I want my Mommy, the little voice silently wailed. Oh, for fuck's sake, the hominid groaned, looking skyward. He glared at Fawn. Tell that little shit that her goddamn Mommy is on the way. He groaned. Jesus fucking Christ. But powerful and kind God, she has already been consumed by the great sphere, the one from which you said there was no escape. First lesson, the hominid said firmly. Never, ever, ever do what I'm about to do. Fuck with causality even a little bit and you can wreck an entire universe. No, you will wreck an entire universe, but... He flashed her a mischievous look and grinned. Universe is already fucked. Wait, right here. Literally, right here. Do not move from this spot. Got it? Fawn nodded. The hominid started to walk away. He stopped. And another thing, he said, fixing her with an irritated glare. Stop calling me a fucking god. I am not God or a god or any of that shit. And neither are you. Hubris is fatal, even to us. So stop putting that shit on me. It's getting on my nerves. Muttering a constant stream of obscenities, the ape man stomped down the mountain path. A short while later, the hominid reached the edge of the giant pitch-black sphere. I can't fucking believe I'm doing this. He grumbled. He took a deep breath and moved, not forward, backwards, left or right, but he started stepping before. As he did so, the sphere started to retreat, slowly shrinking back towards the portal from which it came. Soon it was gone, and a bright light could be seen in the distance as he re-entered normal 3+1D space. I'm going to completely lose my shit, he grinned as he headed in that direction. The ape man was lounging in his lawn chair at the portal's entrance. He took a big handful of popcorn, anticipating the look on the three idiots' faces. This was going to be fun. Hey, an entirely too fucking familiar voice said behind him. What the fuck, dude? He said as he spun around to face himself. Dude, he replied. I kind of need something. Whoa, he said, backing away. That was a one-time thing. The 70s were a crazy time, you know. Yeah, crazy. Remember that time I made that bet with Oscar Wilde? He snorted. Some mistakes you just have to be made, right? Shame about Oscar, though. He died far too soon. Yeah. Well, that was the least stupid reason you're here. Can I even know? Probably best you don't, he replied. Let's just say this universe is fucked anyway, so what the hell? Fair enough. Gonna freeze me? Yep. Just wanted to give you a heads up so you didn't freak out and accidentally kill me. Last thing we need is a paradox on top of the shit I'm pulling. Cool. Hope you know what you're doing. He shrugged. Christ, you are one ugly bastard, you know that? You too, asshole. With that, Hominid waved his hands. He really didn't have to, but it looked cool. And one of him, and everything behind him, froze in space. Right, he grumbled as he pulled out a large scroll that unfurled and rolled for dozens of meters. Let's see here. Looking for the first car for yourself? All the ones that you want are overpriced beyond belief? Or of gas mileage your parents disagree on? Never knew 20 miles per gallon is bad? 20 miles per gallon is awful. But I'm also not a good person to talk about cars with because I do not know cars. I don't even own a car. Don't even have an interest in owning a car. Also, I am totally behind this dude. He's a bit of an asshole, but you know what? When you got this much power, who's going to stop you? Fawn dutifully stood exactly where she was told. She turned excitedly as she heard a long stream of invective from up the path. The good sir, definitely not a god, had returned. He soon appeared carrying a huge sack on his shoulders. Okay, he growled, his bathrobe dingy and a bit tattered. All of your children are safe and fucking sound. He let the bag fall to the ground where it issued thousands of yelps, squeaks, and hisses. Happy now? Fawn cried out in delight and relief, a delighted relief as she ran forward and embraced the ape man. Thank you, sir, she gushed. Thank you, thank you. She kissed him on the cheek. Whatever, the hominid grumbled. Just grab the little shits. We have to leave now. I just had a one-night stand with causality, and she's going to find out the condom broke any second now. Spoiler, she does not like cream pies. Why? Fawn asked. Cream pies are delicious. Just grab your kids before mine wind up all over our faces. What? Grab the fucking bag and let's get out of here, the ape man hissed, looking around anxiously. Fawn daintily opened the bag and started withdrawing the occupants one at a time, each one magically growing to full size before magically disappearing under her cape. Oh, for fuck's sake, the ape man yelled as he grabbed the bag, swept Fawn under his other arm, and disappeared. Fawn looked about in delight. She was swimming among the stars. Can you breathe okay? The ape man asked as he drifted nearby. Yes, she replied in confusion. Good, he replied. And to answer your question, no. You normally wouldn't be able to breathe out here and probably actually don't have to. But it would freak you out. In any event, your children would definitely have a hard time. I just grabbed up some elements and whipped up a batch of air. Let me know if it gets stuffy. Thank you again, kind sir, she said, as she pulled out a long and very confused fish out of the bag and slipped it under her cloak. She silently retrieved various creatures from the bag as the ape man floated nearby, staring at an ever-expanding brilliant white sphere. Fawn looked up at the curious creature in the robe. I'm sorry, she said, looking downcast. What for? He said, never taking his eyes off the sphere. It's all my fault, she said, burying her head in her hands. Do tell, the ape man smiled, the light from the literal end of everything shining in his eyes. The elves and the dwarves and... She started to weep. It's all my fault. No, the ape man gasped, his eyes wide with shock and horror. It's true, she wailed. I didn't mean for them to be... I trusted them, she cried. I know, he replied. You do? She gasped. It's not my first rodeo, sweetie, he said, still staring at the growing hellball. And you still helped me? Yep, he shrugged, still transfixed. Why? I'm capricious and mercurial, he replied. It's how I roll. Besides, you weren't a bad sort. You just fucked up, that's all. First universe? I know not what you mean. You just answered my question, the ape-man replied, looking away from the fundamental devastation for the first time. Pantheons are a classic noob mistake. The only times they don't result in exactly what happened to you, or worse, is when everyone splits up early and goes their own way, each one taking with them a chunk of idiot number one. Don't worry, it'll grow back. I was just so lonely. Reason number 3 for why idiots form pantheons, the hominid replied, smiling at her. And the only one that is remotely acceptable. Number 1 and number 2 are vanity and laziness. So you just sort of popped into being one day. She nodded. The world was young and I was alone. I made the flowers and the trees and breathed life into all the world's children. With the knowledge, ability, and urge to manipulate matter and create life. Sounds like you're a wild boltzmann, the hominid said sympathetically. Big oof. A boltzmann? It's been known to happen, he replied. Literally everything happens somewhere, somewhen. Sometimes what we call a boltzmann brain lasts only moments, and sometimes they stick around. Every now and then, they can either get or be able to form a body. With 10 to the bajillion bubbles popping into existence every tens of the bajillionth of a second, literally anything is possible, no matter how stupidly improbable. Doesn't explain your soul, though. I guess your soul could have been sucked in during inflation, or maybe there was a big kill-off when the nearby universe collapsed or something. The chances of all this lining up are impossibly low, which means it was bound to happen. And here you are. I'm sorry, the fawn stammered. I don't understand. Don't worry about it, he replied. You will, or you won't. It really doesn't matter. Are your children okay? Yes, she replied happily. They're coming out of the bag. They're coming out of the bag whole and hearty. Cool, because I was just stuffing the motherfuckers in there. Perhaps one day you will realize exactly how stupid I was getting those little shits. Was it perilous? Very. I am truly grateful, sir, she replied. But why? Why would you risk so much for someone who has wronged you so badly? He grumbled, too quiet to hear. Sir? I said, there has been enough death for one day, he muttered a bit louder. We need to pull back a bit. Even we don't want to get caught by that big, beautiful baby there. Elsa, hold up. There's a cat. I got you, my big baby. Where was I? He gently grabbed her arms as they moved impossibly quickly away from the glowing sphere. Here, he said after a few moments. This will give us a nice view and a little bit more time before we have to move again. How big is it going to be? The hominid just laughed. Jacob Robert, the beautiful maniac whose name I will carry for untold eons, has done a number of on my happy little home. That sphere will never stop growing. It will continue to expand, consuming everything in its path forever. Even when the stars cease to shine, this motherfucker still will be, not that you can actually see it in real time. I'm playing a few tricks to make this possible. This is sort of an artist's rendition of what is actually going on in there, but it's 100% accurate. It will never stop? Nope, he replied, as he swept his arms across the stars. Pretty much everything you see here will be utterly destroyed. I've destroyed your home. I destroyed yours, the hominid chuckled. It's only fair. But no, you haven't destroyed my home. Not all of it. Jacob Roberti exalt his name, did. Oh, he is going to rip a huge-ass chunk out of it, but most of it will survive intact. I don't build crap. I have a little safeguard in place for just this sort of thing. If it never stops growing, then won't it consume everything in the... Elsa, get off! Sorry. Elsa really should know better than to be on the computer at this point. Where was I? Go away. The computer is not your home. I've destroyed your home. I destroyed yours, the hominid chuckled. It's only fair. But no, you haven't destroyed my home. Not all of it. Jacob Roberti, exalt his name, did. Oh, he is going to rip a huge-ass chunk out of it, but most of it will survive intact. I don't build crap. I have a little safeguard in place for just this sort of thing. If it never stops growing, then won't it consume everything in the end? That is why you add a little fudge factor in the constants. It's some of that physics I keep talking about. It can expand forever and still never reach most of what I built. I don't understand. Don't worry, he smiled, putting his arm around her. You will. Universe is expanding faster than it's growing. Okay, so this story continues, and I feel like I should probably point out that it continues. And if anyone is interested in continuing to read this, let me throw this out into the chat. But I'm going to stop here. A hell of a writing prompt. Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed that. That was, you know what? I'm actually going to have to ask the author what they want me to call that one, because I can't just use the whole writing prompt. Who was the author? That was Slightly Assholic. Doo-doo-doo. Elsa, no. You're not allowed up there. Go. Cats. She'll be allowed up there once I actually fix it with super glue. Okay. Okay. All right then. So I hope that everyone enjoyed that. And What time is it? Oh my god, that took ages. I do like this Homo erectus fellow. How many stories we got left? So how you doing, Synchrono? I saw you come into chat and couldn't really say much because I was in the midst of a story. Might also turn on a light while we're between stories because it is quite dark now. It is a struggle. I mean, I know that this is always a really big risk, but have you considered looking for used ones, or are you already looking for a used car? And also, yeah, 20 miles per gallon isn't great. Facebook Marketplace, I wouldn't check that. Okay. Got some tea off to the side here. Peach fruit tea, which honestly I wanted to try out just to see how it was because I'm going through all of the bubble tea near where I live and just trying out each one to see if I like it. So far they've been all right. There's one that I really like, and that's Pomelo Saga, which is really good. Also, hold up, let me check something real quick. Well, I am thinking about it. Porsche 944, damned elegant, but all are around 10K. How much? What's your budget? $7K? Yeah, you're not going to be able to get too much interesting for that, but I think that your goal should be more just what works. Dude, why not? Priuses are great. My mom has always had a Prius, and I always liked the car. Priuses are actually one of my favorite kinds of cars just because they're hybrids, but also because I actually do like their general design. You know what? F it. I'm gonna go ahead and add this to my big list of stories, and I can ask, how many of these are there? Story ad. What is this? The Great Erectus and Fawn. Boop. You've been wanting to get into motorsports for a long time. Just want something that stands out. Gotcha. Hold up. Let me see if I can actually ping someone who knows a hell of a lot about cars. Because he is actually an auto mechanic. He might be able to help you a little bit. All right. So where was I? Well, we've obviously got another story to read. How's everyone in chat going? What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 stories, it looks like. A 94 Subi Impreza's in your dream. Or is your dream? Subi Impreza. Subaru, I assume? Ah, okay. Type of sedan. God, you would not be able to have me tell you what kind of car is outside. Someone at some point, when I was trying to get an Uber driver, told me what their car was, and I'm just like, I don't know what that is. I don't know cars. You're almost awake. Am I putting you to sleep, Dr. Blackjack? Is my voice doing its magic? Apparently people really do like my voice for storytelling, which is always really weird to me because I personally don't like my voice. I could point out all the different things and then everyone would hear the things that I'm annoyed with. And you know what? I'm not going to do that because I want to keep doing this. You're always half asleep? Oh, almost awake then would be an improvement from half asleep. That is, what, 80% on the awake scale? By the way, if anyone wants to select another story, we're probably going to get through all of them tonight. I think that only one of these is yours, right, Blackjack? Well, good. Well, we'll see what's going on. I think that I'll hold off on dragons for now. I want to, for one thing, obviously I am making a lot of mistakes. That last one, dialogue is just the great Homo erectus talks in such a way that he's really easy to read. And I've said this before, but the better written dialogue is, the easier it is for me to read and the less mistakes I usually make on it. And that was just a really fun one. Are SCP Tales your thing, or is it copyrighted hell? You know, I'd actually have to ask. I genuinely don't know what the deal is on SCP stuff. I know that there's obviously people that do SCP readings, like the Volgan is a really big person who does it. But first of all, I don't think that I could beat the Volgan. The Volgan puts way too much effort, and actually, no, just so much effort into all of the readings that they do. There's a specific couple of tales that I would love to read, but okay, SCP is all open. Anyone can do any of their stuff. Yeah, that's fair. I just want to make sure that I'm not shortchanging you, because it seems like it's your biggest story, and I don't want to end up reading it when I'm feeling a little bit off. Their website declares everything submitted is free to use, but anything created using their stuff is also free to use. That makes sense. So you can't sell it or monetize it, which I don't, so should be good. That's the best thing about running a non-affiliated stream with Twitch, is that none of my streams are monetized in any way, shape, or form, and all donations are entirely at will through Patreon. I do need to figure out what the deal is with that, because that might be a conflict of interest if it was through Patreon. You can sell it, but then anyone is free to monetize anything you make using it too. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Cargo room. There is in a Discord that I frequent pretty regularly. It's the Rogue Tech Discord because I am a BattleTech nerd. There's a user in there called Cargo Room, and it makes me really happy seeing his username every time. He's recently changed it to Cargo Stonk, or sorry, what is it? Hold on, I can check. Oh, never mind. Still Cargo Room, but it was like something about stocks. It's an interesting policy. Admittedly, it's been a while since you've read it, so it might bear reviewing. That's fair. Yeah, I'd like to do them. Big fan of a lot of the earlier SCP works. As they went on, I kind of feel like the universe has gotten a little bit... I don't know how to put it. Pretentious isn't the right word. I don't think that I'd use that to describe it. Muddled? Muddled might be a good word. Like, there's a lot going on in it, basically. Yeah, sure, if you want to. There's definitely a couple of really good ones. Flesh That Hates comes to mind. Colluded? Colluded could also be a good word. The later on that you get in the SCPs, the more they tend to be related to each other. Yeah, Flesh That Hates is a really good one. It's a extremely interesting take on your average zombie infestation. Yeah, that's pretty much what those are the ones that I like the most, Blackjack. As they go on, they kind of get a little bit more philosophical, and I'm not 100% sure I'm a fan of the later ones. Like the 3000 series especially is just up there. One of my favorites in the 3000 series was the giant eel, though. That's a fun one. Better than some of the other ones because it's kind of like a giant eel god thing. You forgot the one SCP that is used to reset humanity. I think I remember that one. That's the one that decays any technology to a certain point. Please don't. I have done image readings before, but they're really hard to do in this sort of format. And I don't really know what to do because all I can really do is like put them up on screen and then have everyone look at them, which doesn't really make for a very good streaming experience, and as it doesn't include me in any way. And pretty much anyone could do that and have pretty much the same output. It's a slideshow at that point. You're not that evil. I do like SCP-999 though. 999 is fun. That's the sentient jello. The very happy and sentient jello. Elsa, what are you doing? Okay, yeah, you can sit there. You're okay. What you doing? Just don't get on the PCs. The J series is fun. Jokes. I mean, I kind of originally made the Dark Forest as sort of its own standalone SCP, but eventually it just developed into something else. .420J. How long have they been going on for now? I don't remember when the first SCP came out. It does amuse me though that the first SCP was not 001 because there are like 6 different SCPs that are all 001, and people keep like no one wants to give that to any one person or any one SCP. It was January 2008. Really? One of the ones that I actually enjoyed a lot was the monster jar, and then there was also something like the magnetic water or the magnetic bacteria, which you never hear people talking about. Obviously, one of the bigger ones is the Plague Doctor, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. Kind of hard not to be. It's Volgan's favorite SCP from what I understand, so there's a lot of imagery around for it. I have done that one. And the one thing that I really do love about the SCP series is that they all, like all of the higher quality ones, tend to come with actual audio recordings, which lets me rest my voice in between large sections of technical manual reading. Lore-wise, there's more than one SCP-001 to hide the true 001. Oh, is that why we have so many of them? The one that I first remember reading was the Gate, the Gate and the Guardian. And then there was also God, which was just a giant machine god. Then there was also an SCP that made other SCPs, which would have been thematically appropriate, but probably a bit too on the nose. Anyway, I'm stalling, mostly just to give myself a little bit of time to rest between stories. We can go ahead and roll another one. Did I actually roll another one already? Ah, I did. Humans are galactic cryptids. I didn't even realize that I'd rolled another one. Hey, Synchrono, random question. Are you, you're not part of the Discord, are you? NBFF, the person who I was talking about, who knows cars pretty well and would probably be able to help, is part of the Discord and would be able to help you, but he's not able to join right now. Okay, you should ask him later. Oh, by the way, Oh god, that's 5 minutes. If anyone is at all curious as to what the human did, or what the human wished for during that last story, here you go. Of course, it's a Kuzkasat's video, so yeah, that's awful. All right. Now, I just want to notify the author that we are going to be starting this, because the last one I should probably should have notified the author. I think you sent one of your performances in the disc. Performances. Wait, performances? You do performances? Of what kind? Marching band and indoor percussion. I don't think I remember that. I could be wrong. You may have sent it in another Discord. Okay. Anyway, where was I? Right. Humans are galactic cryptids. Also, the funny thing is, and no one's noticed this at all, but I'm not even on the storytelling screen. This is the storytelling screen. But they look so similar that no one ever brought it up. Anyway, okay. So this is Humans Are Galactic Cryptids by... Okay, Sharky and George. Let me read that again. Humans Are Galactic Cryptids by Sharky and George. The clenched chitin fist smashed into the Duraplast table, leaving a not inconsiderable dent in the matte gray surface. Enough! The bureaucratic blathering and professional pondering of these so-called experts had blended into a putrid melange of maybes, perhaps, ifs, ands, or buts over the last 3 days of the emergency human summit. It was incumbent upon Drivet to try and corral these single-minded fools, cloud-chasing clods, and effervescent egocentrics into something that might, in bad light, and from a distance, be called a think tank, and perhaps, just perhaps, get a plan of action hammered out. However, in the trio of dismal days so far, I'm sorry. I interrupted myself mentally right there. It was just like I love all of the random alliteration. However, in the trio of dismal days so far, all that seemed to be happening were ideas for books, grant proposals, and media tours. He glowered compoundedly at the shelled Dr. Vasitic, who was hunched in discussion with another scientist. He was half convinced that rather than the esteemed representative from the Tiberit School of Economics and Statistics he was supposed to be, he was in fact an agent of some sort. Not a spy. He could have actually respected that. He was a military man himself, but this was a completely open conference. No, that bastard was trying to secure clients for the media frenzy that would follow this convivium's conclusion. That word I actually did not know, so I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. He glowered again, squinting the lids of all 6 eyes at the gastropod git. If he could prove it, someone was getting a cloacal enema via Drivet's far-right boot. Gentle beings. His segmented limbs waved people down and back into various seats, niche, hammocks, and in one case, Spike. We are getting nowhere, and we're not even getting there fast. His roving eye, flailing spiked limbs, and frankly the poison that he had naturally slathered in, and its that he was naturally slathered in, and its sweet scent that thickened in the air as he gesticulated, finally restored some order. I hate to remind you all, but the humans are here now. He flicked a limb, and a well-worn series of images flashed on the wall behind him. He had shown these dozens of times throughout the conference, and still, for the life of him, could not understand why it didn't worry these intellectuals as it did him. Shot after shot showing the same thing, a ghostly apparition of 2 or more individuals, never more than 5, that watched citizens of dozens of different worlds, sometimes reaching out or seeming to talk. Frequently, they seemed to be doing a little on-the-spot dance as they watched a task being completed or a familial interaction. It's fascinating, of course. The voice belonged to a tiresome blowhard of an academic who had been heard far too much from in the last few days. But again, I don't really see the problem. They don't interact. Indeed, they seem to be deliberately inhabiting an adjacent but not connected dimension, specifically so they cannot interact with us. Drivet had no intention of announcing in an open forum that in fact he knew of at least 6 occasions where humans had solidified. One had been to heal the broken leg of a small child that had fallen far from his familial group, and 5 others where the small, slender humans had seemingly unable... Let me try that again. And 5 others where the small, slender humans had seemingly been unable to resist approaching someone and running their limbs through its fur, or straightening a tie. Instead, he let the professional pronouncements continue. Furthermore, there seem to be very strict rules they abide by, never entering the homes or private areas, never speaking. Wrong again. Drivet had heard the human coos from several interaction survivors. Who's a good boy, then? The memory made him shudder. What did it mean? Was it a threat or an omen? He tuned back in. Technology is so far beyond ours that it's something of a fait accompli. Sorry. I gotta ask, is that how you actually pronounce that? Fait accompli? Fait accompli? Someone help me out here. This is probably the first time I've had a story where the vocabulary is a little bit above my own. Oh, you don't know either. Okay, this is going well. Elsa, what you doing? Technology is so far beyond ours that it's something of a fait accompli. We're just going to have to live with it. A pregnant silence fell over the group at this, and Drivet came to his full height, all 12 limbs spread large, the large spines on his back pulsing. The mandibles of Elsa. I swear to God, I know she does it because she wants my attention. I'll be right back. Happy. All right. Sorry about that. Who's a good boy then? Technology is so far beyond ours that it's something of a fait accompli. We're just going to have to live with it. A pregnant silence fell over the group at this, and Drivik came to his full height, all 12 limbs spread large, the large spines on his back pulsing, the mandibles of his jaws clenching, and the numerous citations and awards from bravery blaring on his thorax. Now, very easy for you to say, Professor. He lanced the rotund and fluffy with a glare. Is that right? Yeah, okay. He lanced the rotund and fluffy with a glare, fixing on his wide brown eyes. When they come to your world, they smile. 2 limbs flicked out and indicated the rest of the group at large. They do little dances and gently follow you, chittering silently. But when they come to ours, he indicated the lone spike percher, who looked like a large bacterium, or perhaps a slime mold. We get looks of horror and disgust. They leave quickly and never return. How long before they decide the universe would be a nicer place without us and those like us in it? The silence came again. Was fallow and deathly, and he watched the furtive glance of selfish men. I'm not sure if it's technically correct grammar or if it's just... I don't know. I really don't know if the grammar is correct here. He intended to vent his rage more, but was distracted by the frantic beckoning of a junior officer at the room's rear. When I return, I better hear more solutions and less platitudes. He quickly scuttled down the conference room and rushed to catch up with his junior, who had started to hurry aft at his approach. Situation. Solar destabilization of a Denev 9, sir. They continued to rush forward, but Drivet's heart stopped suddenly. Denev 9 was a main colony world. His world, where his family were, his partner, the children. Oh, goddess, the children. Private prognosis? He stuttered. The junior officer halted outside the CIC doors. 95 to 98% loss, sir. And there just aren't enough ships for a full-scale evacuation. He opened the doors onto chaos. I'm sorry, sir, but you are in command. Drivet slammed his fear and horror down into the iron-bound chest of his will. Of course he was senior aboard, and much needed to be done. Even 2% was many millions they would need to support, rescue, and safe harbor. Panic threatened to set in, but he slammed that down too. People needed him now. His family would... Slam! No. Duty now, grief later. He strode inside and began to bark orders, sending underlings scuttling back and forth. He had begun to get a handle on it and started to order evacuation routing and supply movements when he felt, rather than heard, a hush fall over the frantic room. And looking up to the main viewer, he saw the reason. A ship was materializing slowly on the live stream from Deneve. It was truly massive, 1,000 clicks or longer, and it shined like a silver arrow as it insinuated its way into reality. The humans. They had done this. They were responsible for the imminent death of billions. With a tight clench of his chest, he wondered if this was simply the first. Would other colonies follow? Would the homeworld? He started to scream that every ship in the system should attack immediately, and railed that he sat impotently a galaxy away as these extra-dimensional bastards murdered his people for the crime of not being cute. When something very strange happened. A golden light sprang forth from the silver ship and encased the dying star. It moved like living metal and forced down coronal ejections, dispersing sunspots, and slowly seemed to reassemble it to the and slowly seemed to reassemble it to the normal calm appearance he had seen each time he strode from his home. The command center watched in silence as it then plunged the golden force deep into Denive's interior and scooped out vast amounts of some unknown substance from the star's heart, as if drawing poison from a wound. Then, still clutching its stellar cargo, it faded once more into insubstantiation. The silence was total for several minutes, and then slowly and hushed, as if in a holy place, the ship's officers began to check readouts and collate data. Drivet sat clenched in shock, only slowly understanding that his family had been saved. He looked down at the screen on his command and reviewed the footage again. The ship was incredible, seemingly made of flowing quicksilver and completely unmarred by any protuberance, but for one darkened spot. He zoomed in, and when that didn't help, he called up several other angles from in the system until he got a clear view. It appeared to be writing, though he obviously had no idea what it said. Still, he would thank the Bug Boys Arthropod Appreciation Club for the rest of his and his family's life. Author's note: other submissions in this thread were along. Other submissions in the thread were along the "keep the cute, kill the rest" theme. But I love that there is nothing so weird or ugly that some human somewhere doesn't love it. I like that. Because that's the thing. No matter what, there's always someone that's going to love it. I know people that do, in fact, love slime balls. Arthropod Appreciation Club. I'm just reading some of the comments. There's good comments. Okay. That was enjoyable. I feel like I didn't do so well on that one. I do love the alliteration at the beginning, although it kind of fell off as the story went on. Gonna have to ask the author about that, see if they intended to do it for the entire story. All right, let's go ahead and roll another. Gas Station Jack, fantastic. So this is Tales from the Gas Station by Gas Station Jack. I will only be reading... Well, we'll see about that, actually. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Because there's up to 8 sections right now. Now, I'm pretty sure... Okay, no. So I asked him just for the first one, and I think he said... Let me just double check the conversation. The last few get long? Okay. Now, I only asked him about the first one, which is the one that you linked. So we'll probably just do the first one, and I will ask him about further ones if you want to submit more of them. He seemed to be perfectly fine with me doing any of them. If I want to do a narration, I may, as long as the platform I narrate on is 100% free from anything maliciously offensive. That makes sense. Link back to the original post, or even better, to the Amazon page, which we might as well do now. If anyone is interested in anything by this author after we finish reading, how about you take a look at the Amazon page, because I know for a fact that this author supports themselves exclusively through their writing. I know that because they have the Tales from the Gas Station on audiobook, and I imagine they make a decent chunk off of it. This was interesting because I was 100% certain that he would actually not allow me to do this since he had the audiobooks out, but this is apparently, like, all the stuff that's posted on Reddit, separate from the audiobooks. Okay, anyway, yes, let's get going. So this is Tales from the Gas Station by Gas Station Jack. At the edge of our town, there's a shitty gas station that opens 24 hours a day. Or that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you were to go inside, you'd see row after row of off-brand chips, cookies, potted meats, and pickled curiosities. Expiration dates suspiciously missing from the canned goods, like they were filed off years ago in some misguided attempt to control inventory turnover. A faded wet floor sign from way back covers a large crack in the foundation by the cooler, where layers of sticky spill-off have formed a miniature tar pit, preserving countless insect corpses and the occasional small rodent. Nobody ever complains about the aesthetic, but by some providence bordering on the supernatural, the health inspector has repeatedly signed off on the business, always kindly ignoring the faint smell of some kind of mysterious chemical cocktail that is the defining characteristic of the establishment. More noticeable than the steady mechanical hum of the frozen drink machine that was installed in the 70s and never once serviced. More distracting than the random pockets of cold and warm air that seem to follow you around. And more annoying than the family of mutated raccoons that lives in the crawl space behind the grease trap. We think they're mutated anyway. At the very least, they must be inbred to the point of genetic deformity and mental retardation. The alpha, a muscular 3-foot-tall son of a bitch named Rocco, has been spotted multiple times chewing on people's tires and has been run over at least twice, but keeps coming back. That lingering smell, a sweet combination of honeysuckle, ammonia, and vomit, has never been positively defined. But the prevalent I read that wrong. That lingering smell, a sweet combination of honeysuckle, ammonia, and vomit, has never been positively identified. But the prevalent theory is that it's coming from underground, wafting up through the thin fissures in the concrete that grow and spread with each year of architectural settling. It's strongest right after a rain, and pungent to the point of tear-inducing if you get too close to the storm drains, where even Rocco and his clan refuse to tread. If you were to go inside, you might also see the bathroom cowboy. He's sort of an urban legend around here, only ever appearing when you're alone and unsuspecting. What makes him truly legendary are the stories people tell after an alleged encounter. The accounts run for the gamut from pretty weird to impossibly bizarre. So, the guy last 2 months who went for a pee but changed his mind when he saw him standing there next to the urinal, wearing a duster, bandana, boots, and chaps, handing out balloon animals. Or a couple weeks later, when another customer stepped into the same bathroom to see a man wearing nothing but a cowboy hat, boxers, and boots with spurs, literally grinding an axe on an old-fashioned stone sharpening wheel. When he entered, the cowboy stopped what he was doing, looked up with a smile and a tip of the hat, and said, "Come on, man! Come on with it." If you should be lucky enough to see the cowboy that may or may not haunt the bathroom, don't worry. He's harmless, and in fact, usually quite polite. Honestly, he doesn't seem so bad, especially compared to some of the other things that go on in the place. When you go inside, you might instantly get a toothache. That's a strangely common phenomenon that nobody really understands. It should go away on its own after a couple of hours. If you do... hold up. Okay, yes. If you do go inside, you will almost definitely see me sitting behind the counter because I am the only full-time employee, and I'm almost always here. You may catch me reading a book because, for some reason, the internet doesn't work way out here, and cell phone service is dicey on good days and non-existent on most. If you need to make a call, you can leave and go up the hill a ways, preferably back towards town because the other way will take you into the woods, and you don't even want me to go into all the reasons that's not a good idea. Or you can pay me 25 cents a minute and use the store's landline. The arrangement was cooked up by the landowners and I have actually... Oh, sorry. The arrangement was cooked up by the landowners. No, not the landowners. The owners. The arrangement was cooked up by the owners, and I have to actually enforce it because they do check the phone records. I'm sorry. While you're here, don't be offended if I don't strike up a conversation because, if I'm being completely honest, I don't always know for sure if everyone who comes through those doors is real or not. And if I had to acknowledge anyone in that place that could be an actual person, I might lose my mind. And we don't need any more of that going on around here. I guess that the point I'm trying to make is this. Weird things happen to me working at this shitty gas station at the edge of town. I wish I could tell you the weirdest things that have happened here, but I doubt I could ever decide. There were just too many. I've seen a total of 4 coffins inside the store on 3 different occasions. I've met at least a dozen people wandering back into town from the woods claiming they had escaped aliens or government conspirators or the like, and that had no money but needed to make a call. And could I please just let them use our store's phone before they find them again? But rules are rules, and I'm not inclined to lose my job just because you didn't escape captivity with a little pocket change. And then, of course, there was Farmer Brown. Yeah, that's his real name, who got mad at us and complained about the bulk feed we'd been ordering for him. He insisted something was wrong with the product because, as he put it, all of his animals suddenly had human faces. We settled with him by charging a significant discount on his next couple purchases. He stopped coming in not long after, and they found what was left of his body inside a bedroom at the farmhouse that had been locked from the inside. As far as I know, they still haven't figured that one out. Anyway, I guess I can come back and tell a story or two, but first I need to get ready to work. Yeah. Anyway, I guess I can come back and tell a story or two, but first I need to get ready for work. Okay. That was exactly as good as I was hoping it would be. Admirable marsupial. Well, that was dumb. Oh, this is a short one. Humans always ask the dumbest questions. Why are the people looking at me like I'm crazy? Oh, sorry, I didn't read the title. Okay. This is, well, that was dumb by Admirable Marsupial. Humans always ask the dumbest questions. Why are people looking at me like I'm crazy? Because you're eating enough capsaicin to kill a small town, you fucking freak. Why did you refuse our mining permit? Because sending a star supernova to make the resources easier to collect doesn't meet a single legal safety requirement for mining, you gibbering psychotic ape. Why are we barred from the Tirby system? Why are we barred from the Irby system? Because they are telepathic, and the last one who met one of your species without psychic shielding started clawing their own eyes out while quietly muttering, Tentacles don't go there, over and over again. And they shouldn't have to carry psychic shielding on their own planet just because you're all perverts. Why can't I take the alien doggy home? Because it's a 200-kilogram murder machine from a death world that, you know what, fuck it, you have fun, I'm out. We thought that when it came to insane and stupid questions, the humans were in a league of their own. Then the humans found out about the black market pleasure slave trade of a poor race called the Nuhulans, run by a little-known race called the Rulids in the Galactic Fringe. They heard how the gangs running the auction had avoided punishment due to the massive bribes paid to their government and demanded it to be ended immediately. Then the Rulids managed to ask a question so monumentally stupid it would have made someone try to eat their own radioactive feces through a straw, looking like it would have made someone trying to eat their own radioactive feces through a straw look like the most intelligent scholar in galactic histories. What the fuck are you going to do about it? The laugh from the Nuhulans could be heard even through the vacuum of space. They're humans. They're going to nuke the shit out of you. All right. Short but sweet. Indeed. How many stories we got left? I think we got ghost ships left, and that's it. Yep. Can I do this in 30 minutes? I don't know how long this one is. I can roll it, but it's going to be the end. Probably. All right. Okay. Oh, this is a spin-off from Dragons. You know what? If I don't have a good list of stories by next week, I'm going to start Dragons with you, Blackjack. And we can go through it together. It'll be great. Okay. So this is Of Men and Ghost Ships, Chapter 1, by Dr. Blackjack 21. Carter was having a really bad day. He'd worked aboard various vessels as equal parts security and heavy lifting for years in order to save up enough for his own ship. As it turned out, it takes more than just owning a ship to make money as a trader. You need to have buyers, sellers, information, and connections. All he had was an old beat-up ship that had already seen too many years of use named Lucy, and a collection of bills that seemed to be growing rather than shrinking. So, when he'd finally been offered a job that paid enough to get the creditors off his back for a while, he didn't look too closely at the details. In hindsight, it turned out the details included the fact that most people don't offer an unknown beat-up freighter a well-paying job, which was to say that all of the other more reliable freighters had already turned the job down. It also turned out that one of the things that would make a freighter captain turn down a well-paying job was when it required them to pilot through well-known pirate territories. Long story short, Carter was now sitting aboard the Lucy's escape pod, which was barely half-stocked with survival supplies, floating through a part of space that was far enough away from any decent civilization that his little emergency radio would only be heard by those who'd put him in the situation to begin with. After a couple days drifting, Elsa, get off! She heard me. After a couple of days drifting, Carter picked up another ship on his sensors. He assumed the pirates had returned to finish the job, but became slightly less pessimistic when it turned out to be an old derelict. While far from the largest ship he'd ever seen, it was still a big ship spanning over 120 meters. He was still probably going to die alone in space, just like the crew of that ship probably had, but at least he now had options other than sitting in his pod and starving. If nothing else, it gave him a feeling of having some measure of control over his destiny, even if it was mostly an illusion. Also keeps looking at the computer. As he slowly maneuvered his pod closer to the ship, he noticed it was one of the oddest looking ships he had ever seen. It seemed more like some child had meshed 3 ships together in some unholy conglomeration than anything that had ever been designed by a sane mind. Some of it looked like a mighty warship designed to use brute force to win in a slugfest with larger vessels. Another part looked to be a fast, sleek luxury vessel owned by some wealthy debutante. The last bit looked more down to earth, as though it had been designed more for comfort than function. Perhaps it had been some sort of family vessel. Are we looking at, like, a Space Hulk here? You're familiar with Space Hulks from the 40K universe, right, Dr. Blackjack? Ships that ended up getting lost in the warp and then got smashed together as they teleported in and out of reality. Okay. As he got close enough to see all the wear and tear the ship had endured over the years, he noticed the ship's name and felt his heart suddenly gripped in the Elsa. As he got close enough to see all the wear and tear the ship had endured over the years, he noticed the ship's name and felt his heart suddenly gripped in the icy fist of fear. It was the Sybil. Lying dormant right in front of Carter was the most infamous ghost ship to ever grace the void. It had been decades since the Sybil had shown up on anyone's radar, but when it did make an appearance, it was always a crapshoot about what would happen next. At one point, it had been the most notorious pirate vessel of its time. Whole shipping lanes were abandoned just due to rumors of the Sybil. The Sybil was in the area. Other times, it seemed almost benevolent, towing stranded crews to the safety of civilization. There was one constant in all the stories, though. Anytime someone was foolish enough to set foot aboard the ship, they were never seen or heard from again. On the other hand, Carter didn't have an abundance of options. His choice was still the same, although the odds had shifted a little further from his favor. Go aboard and almost certainly die, or stay in his pod and definitely die. Almost certain death was infinitely better than certain death. So, after taking a moment to plead with whatever god might be listening, Carter docked his pod and readied himself to go aboard. Dramatic pause. Upon exiting his pod, Carter's first impression was somewhat mixed. On one hand, there was clean air and gravity, even if the air was somewhat stale. On the other hand, the sight in front of him looked like it belonged in some sort of horror movie. Most of the lights were off or broken, and the few remaining lights flickered or sparked, giving him a slideshow view of the ship. What he could see through the unreliable ambient lights and his own gauntlet-mounted flashlight was a hallway corroded with rust and mystery stains that he told himself were probably just dried oil or grease. Carter was starting to wonder if going back to the pod and calling it a day was the better option, but somehow a swift death at the hands of the ghost ship seemed a bit better than slowly dying of starvation, while also cramped in a space not quite large enough while also cramped in a space not quite large enough that he could ever fully stretch out. Well, time to get out of the frying pan and into the fire. Let's see what you've got in store for me. Carter had hoped the sound of his own voice might bolster his resolve a little, but somehow hearing his small voice get devoured by the oppressive silence around him just made the ship seem even more malevolent. With a shrug, he unholstered his handgun, checked the ammo, and began his exploration. Walking down yet another corridor, Carter was starting to wonder if someone had toyed with him, or someone was toying with him, or if his time stuck alone on the pod had mixed... I'm going to start that again. Walking down yet another corridor, Carter was starting to wonder if someone was toying with him, or if his time stuck alone on the pod had mixed the nightmarish atmosphere permeating the ship to mess with his mind. He could swear he was being followed, but the movement always stayed just off at the very edge of his peripheral vision. Every time he whipped around, gun at the ready, he was met with nothing more than another old and decaying room or wall. Looking into yet another room, Carter was met with more of the same. A thick layer of dust covered every surface. There was a bed. Elsa? Do I have to lock you in another room? I would prefer not to. Brat. Elsa is quite the brat. Where was I? Looking into yet another room, Carter was met with more of the same. A thick layer of dust covered every surface. There was a bed, a dresser full of worn, ratty clothes, and the odd personal effects, but nothing useful. That's when something caught his attention, the sound of muffled laughter coming from just out in the hallway. Carter's first impulse was to run and investigate, but he'd seen too many bad movies to follow that impulse. Instead, he readied his gun, keeping the barrel pointed low but forward, and called out, "Hello? Is anyone out there? I'm sorry if I'm intruding, but my ship was raided by pirates, and I didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. I didn't mean any harm." There was no answer, so Carter tried once again. "All right, I'm going to come out. I'm armed, but it's only for self-defense. Again, I mean you no harm." Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, Carter walked back out into the hallway and was greeted by exactly what he expected. Nothing. He decided to try one last hello before shaking his head at himself. "You're letting the stories of this place get to you. Ghosts aren't real, you know that. So calm down. You're even starting to talk to yourself, and that's probably not a good sign." That was when the laughter returned, but this time it seemed to come from around both corners, in addition to the room he'd just left. Carter swung around, trying to keep his gun trained in all three directions at once, forgetting all pretense of appearing non-hostile as his panicked mind painted pictures of ghosts and monsters around every corner. The laughter seemed to grow louder and louder until it started giving him a headache. Carter decided action was better than waiting, and took off running. Tearing around a corner, he slowed only enough for a cursory sweep with his outheld gun before continuing his attempt to escape from the horrendous screech. The laughter fell behind at first, but then seemed to pursue him. At times, it echoed out of the corridors beside or ahead of Carter as he ran, chasing him through the maze of hallways and making him even more lost with each turn. Carter was just starting to suspect he was being herded when a doorway slammed open ahead of him and off to his side. It was the airlock. Both hatches were open, and a hurricane of wind started pushing and pulling him towards the opening. He dropped to the ground and started desperately scrabbling for any handhold to slow his egress, but every door slammed shut as he reached for them. No other surface provided enough purchase to do more than make his heart skip beats as his fingers briefly gained traction before slipping off of them again. Soon, he found himself being pulled into the airlock itself, and Carter grabbed onto the doorway with everything he had in him. Despite the adrenaline fueling his grip, Carter slowly began to lose the battle against the vacuum's pull. He was looking around feverishly for any options, but he knew that these were likely his last moments. His grip finally failed, and Carter started to fall towards the vacuum of space. At the last moment, the outer door slammed shut, and Carter fell against it hard enough that he suspected he'd cracked a rib or two. Despite the pain, he launched himself out of the airlock and hammered the controls to shut the inner door, and only then allowed himself to slide to the ground and catch his breath. That's when a seductively sultry woman's voice called out, seeming to come from every direction at once. "Oh, look, a little cockroach has found its way into our web. You won't escape that easily, little cockroach. It's been far too long since we've had some fun. Now run along, little cockroach. Scamper back into the shadows where you belong." Every door in the hallway flew open, and the piercing laughter resumed, pouring out of every gaping room. Carter decided he'd had enough, and did as the voice commanded, running deeper into the ship. For what seemed like days, Carter hid in the shadows of an empty room, but eventually fear gave way to boredom, and cold logic dictated that staying in this room forever would only result in starvation. Seeing no other option, and now thoroughly lost after running in circles for who knows how long, he resumed his exploration of the ship. Turning a corner, Carter noticed an open door from which a ghostly light was glowing. He could just make out a drunkenly sung dirge emanating from within the room, sounding for all the world as though the singer's voice belonged to an old Earth pirate. 15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done the rest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Carter was just getting ready to turn and leave when the voice called out, "Quit your lollygagging and come inside, lad. I'm not going to kill you. Not yet, anyway." Carter thought about running again, but decided that this spirit at least seemed friendlier than the last. Besides, he really didn't have much to lose at this point. Stepping inside the room, Carter found a feasting hall filled with torches, burning an eerie green light. At the head of a long table sat a man whose visage matched his voice. He looked like an honest-to-God old Earth pirate. He was covered in a well-worn uniform that looked like it might have belonged on a 17th century sailing vessel, topped off with a tricorn tricorn hat sporting a grand feather that hung rakishly off the back end. To complete the image, he held a mug of some suspicious drink in one hand and what appeared to be a turkey leg in the other. He gestured to Carter. "Have a seat, lad, and join in my feast. Never let it be said that I didn't show hospitality to my guests." Looking at the long table between him and the ghost, Carter noticed what must have once been a grand feast laid out on the table. However, so much time had passed that most of the dishes were nothing more than dust and bone, and the few plates that had anything more substantial were covered in maggots and worms. Still, this seemed much more promising than anything else so far. At least this ghost seemed to want to talk. Brushing a thick layer of dust off a seat, Carter sat down and responded to his host. "How about I meet you halfway and have a seat? While I appreciate the offer of food, what you have here seems a bit too rich for my stomach to handle." The pirate reached down to a skeleton that might have been a bird at one time and tore off a bone that materialized into what looked like a piping hot turkey leg as he drew it to his lips. Tearing a chunk off the leg, he spoke through a mouthful of meat, spewing a healthy dose of saliva across the table as he did so. Thankfully, Carter was far enough away that he didn't find out if the ghost spit left any stains. "So, you're one of those weak-in-the-stomach lads, are you? You'd better toughen up if you want to sail through the depths of the void. Still, your loss means more for me." The pirate took a long pull from the mug and glared at Carter with just a hint of hunger gleaming in his eyes. "Now, tell me, lad, what brings you to my humble abode?" Carter debated telling a lie. Complaining about pirates might very well upset his host, But ultimately, he decided that he'd always been blunt before, and there was no reason to stop now. Nodding to his host's pirate attire, Carter explained, "My ship got raided by pirates, and I barely got away with my escape pod. When I saw this place, my choice was simply to come aboard and probably die, or stay away and definitely die. It seemed like an easy decision at the time." He had the pirate's attention now. "Tell me your story. Did you captain a sturdy vessel with a stalwart crew?" Carter sighed despondently. "Well, not so much sturdy as on its last legs, and I'm afraid the only crew on the ship was myself." The pirate's face fell a little, but he tried once more. "So were you set upon by a daring sloop, manned by a swashbuckling daredevil?" Carter shrugged. "Well, I'm not sure what a sloop is, but there was a ship big enough to swallow mine whole, probably crewed by between 70 and 100 pirates." The pirate spit a glob of meat to the ground, which mercifully dissipated before making contact. "Bah! Cowardly scallywags, not deserving of the title pirate. The kind of man not fit to clean me boots, let alone eat at me table." Looking down at a dish in front of him, Carter picked up something vaguely resembling a biscuit out of some sort, topped with a writhing mass of maggots. "I don't know. This seems like precisely the type of food I'd like to feed those pirates." The pirate threw back his head and heartily laughed. "Good on you, lad. Good on you. You keep that fire in your belly and you might just live through the night." That caught Carter's attention. "Yeah, about that. You're not the first ghost I've run into on this ship. The other one seemed a bit more hostile." The pirate laughed again. "And what makes you think I'm not hostile? Though I suppose I don't know what you mean. When the lady gets into... sorry. Though I suppose I know what you mean. When the lady gets into one of her moods, she can be a real..." The pirate tilted his head to the one side, as if listening to something else for a moment before finishing his thought. "She can be a mite difficult to get along with." He finished with a lame grin that clearly said he'd initially been thinking of a different ending to that sentence. The pirate startled Carter when he slammed his fist onto the table and stood up. "Well, enough yammering. I've got ships to hunt and weak-stomached lads to hunt. I'd best be off." With that, the pirate's skin seemed to slowly rot away until his very bones shone through. Eventually, the last of the skin and muscle faded, leaving the bones in a pile on the floor, which then crumbled to dust and blew away in a wind that Carter couldn't feel. Even the torches blew out, leaving the room in a silent, oppressive darkness. Carter decided he'd had enough of that smell of rot and continued his search of the ship. Let me just... Okay. Elsa... Okay. I'll be right back. Elsa, come here. What are you doing? I got you. Okay. Elsa was being grumpy, so I put her up in her tower, and she seems to be calming down. Seems like my singing has scared away a few people. Where was I? Okay, here we are. Carter had been walking along one hallway after another for a while now. It was apparent he was being herded again, although this time the ship seemed to be more polite about it. The path he was supposed to take was well lit, and every door he passed was now locked. After walking an annoyingly long while, he looked up at the ceiling and spoke to any listening spirits. So, you know those nutrient bars I've been snacking on to stave off starvation? Well, I'm experiencing the inevitable result of eating periodically throughout the day, and while I certainly can take care of business in this hallway, I think we'd both be happier if you'd let me use a restroom instead. There was a brief pause, and Carter started to think the ship would try and call what was definitely not a bluff. Then a door opened in the hallway up ahead. The restroom was as dusty as any other room on board the ship, and the walls were caked in the characteristic rust and mystery stains, but the facilities worked well enough. After checking his watch, Carter was surprised to see he'd been exploring the ship for over 8 hours. Add in the time he'd been awake on his escape pod, and he realized why he was feeling so exhausted. Evidently, he loitered on the toilet for a little too long because the lights all turned out, leaving Carter in total darkness. With a sigh of exasperation, he spoke to the ceiling again. All right. No time to relax. I got the message. Now, could you turn the lights back on so I can see what I'm doing while I finish cleaning myself up? A single light turned on in the corner of the room, barely enough to see anything with, causing Carter to grumble about petulant ghosts while he washed his hands and got back to his guided tour of the monotonous hallways. Carter was so exhausted that he'd started to think about lying down in the hallway for a nap, regardless of any nearby spirits. However, his musings were interrupted when he finally seemed to reach his intended goal. It was clearly the ship's bridge. Though it was so shrouded in darkness, it was hard to clearly make out anything other than a chair and a few nearby consoles. What little of the room he could see was bathed in an eerie, fluctuating glow emanating from the few working consoles. More stains were found here, but it was harder for Carter to convince himself they were simply grease when the old crew's bodies remained lying in the widest pools of dried fluids. What was left of their old uniforms were in tatters, and the bodies seemed to have mummified in the dry, recycled air. That was when all the lights went out, and Carter found himself in near total darkness once again. Although this time there was a sound, specifically the sound of someone softly whimpering nearby. Looking around the captain's chair, Carter could make out the small form of a woman with her back turned to him and crying. Her shoulders were trembling as violent sobs racked her frame. What skin he could see from behind was blemished and deathly pale. It barely stretched itself over her long, bony frame. Her hair was greasy and tangled, clinging to her flimsy, blood-stained shirt in such a way that it almost hid her long, spindly fingers, tipped with jagged fingernails wrapped around her shoulders. Carter took one quick look at the woman before saying, "Nope, not playing this game." He then raised his gun and shot the woman clean through her head. Just as he'd expected, the bullet passed through, leaving only slight digitization in its wake. The woman had turned around and was glaring at him accusingly. "I can't believe you shot me." Carter couldn't help but notice she now looked a bit older and a lot healthier. She was pretty in a girl next door sort of way. Holstering the gun, now that it was apparent what he was dealing with, Carter countered her accusation. "I didn't shoot you, I shot through you. The bullet never made contact, so it doesn't count." The woman was now flailing her arms out in exasperation. What if I'd been a survivor? I could have been your only hope of surviving on this ghost ship, and instead I'd be dead, lying in a pool of my own brain matter. Carter just waved her off. But you're not dead. You're an AI, just like the rest of the ghosts on this ship. Seriously, what was wrong with all of you? That's when a familiar, sultry voice drew Carter's attention to his left. I warned you you were overplaying your hand. Now look, you've spoiled our fun. He's not playing along anymore. The voice belonged to a red-haired bombshell of a woman. She was wearing a back button-down overcoat with those thigh-high leather boots. The glare she directed towards Carter was one of disdain and contempt. Not that he would have lasted long anyway. This cockroach hardly seems worth the effort to avoid stepping in. The first girl now wore her hair in a ponytail and sported an oversized pair of glasses, giving her a very bookish appearance. It's not my fault. What kind of madman just up and shoots a lone, vulnerable woman without any warning? Another familiar laugh came from Carter's right. I told you the lad had fire in his belly. That's what you get for underestimating him. Carter looked back and forth between the three spirits turned AI. So what? You three run the ship? The girl answered, pushing her glasses higher up on her nose. Close, but not quite. Suddenly, all three AI started moving and speaking in perfect sync. Welcome aboard my ship. I am Sybil. Finishing with an identical formal bow. Carter looked at the pirate with one raised eyebrow. Sybil? The pirate looked particularly glum as he answered, Aye, 2-1 vote. Carter was trying to understand what was going on, but the lack of sleep being compounded by physical exhaustion wasn't helping any. So, let me get this straight. All three of you are named Sybil. The vixen's voice dripped with scorn. He's not very quick, is he? The girl next door picked up where the vixen left off. Of course not, since this barely makes sense to me. How could he be expected to understand it? Turning her attention back to Carter, the girl continued, There is no we, only me. One AI, three faces. Carter had had enough. Wait. You mean you're an AI with multiple personality disorder? How is that even possible? Also, wasn't the ship haunting space long before the AIs were even a thing? The more answers I get, the more I'm convinced I'm still aboard my escape pod and having a psychotic break. The pirate spoke up this time. You better have a seat, laddie. This is going to be a long night for you. At first, Alan had thought the captain of the Magpie was showing him respect by entrusting him with finding more crew before their next... Wait, hold up. This is Alan. This is Alan, not Carter. Okay. At first, Alan had thought the captain of the Magpie was showing him respect by entrusting him with finding more crew before their next voyage. In truth, Alan now suspected he was given this honor because the captain didn't want to waste any time in such a fruitless venture when he could be out drinking instead. Alan was sitting out in front of the ship with a sign saying, Help wanted. No prior experience required. There were always people looking for work at a station like this one. People who'd have gotten off on the wrong side of the galaxy and needed to scrape together enough cash to afford a trip back to civilized space. However, this beat-up old ship wasn't drawing the best crowds. Alan was just thinking about giving up for the day when an alien whose species he'd never seen before walked through the crowds before stopping and looking at his sign. The alien certainly stood out in a crowd. He looked like some lizard, cat, Viking hybrid, covered in bony armored plates and standing a towering 8 feet tall. As Alan's gaze traveled from the ground upward, he couldn't help but notice the dangerously sharp claws on the alien's feet, hands, and even elbows. The face staring down at him was grinning in what it probably thought was a friendly manner, but all the extra teeth and spindly tendrils in the place of hair made Alan feel like he was being sized up for a snack instead. His voice came out in a guttural accent, as though his throat had never been intended for English. "Got room for two?" It took Alan a moment to puzzle out what the alien had said, but playing the voice over in his head, he could just make out the words. He wasn't sure if it was a good idea, but he was running low on options. Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, sir. Two would be perfect. Is your partner like you, or is he human? The large cat-lizard Viking's grin grew slightly wider, somehow displaying even more teeth than before. "Let me introduce you, Vanessa. Get over here." As the person he'd been speaking to came into view, Alan let his jaw drop in surprise. She was a walking nightmare. Standing 6 feet tall with her abdomen relaxed, she had a body like a spider, with a torso that could be mistaken for humanoid, if you squinted hard enough. However, in full light of day, it looked like a praying mantis with an additional smaller pair of manipulating arms. This was a vestant. But what was one doing this far out in the middle of nowhere? They couldn't survive long outside the range of their queens, and the nearest queen was thousands of light years away. As she approached, she addressed the cat-lizard Viking alien. Despite speaking through a mouth filled with mandibles rather than teeth, she spoke perfect English. What made it more surreal was the fact that she spoke with a proper English accent. "Yes, my lady. How may I serve?" Alan looked back at the cat-lizard Viking alien, his eyes wide and his mouth moving before he realized what he was saying. "My lady? I didn't know you were a female. Sorry about that. I'm not familiar with your species." The cat-lizard Viking looked down at Alan. "I'm not, and there's no reason you should know my species. As far as I know, I'm the only one." Alan was scratching his head in confusion. "You're not female? Then why did the vestant refer to you as my lady?" The cat-lizard Viking heaved a sigh before responding. "Rather than wasting time explaining, watch this." Turning to the vestant, the larger alien commanded her. "Vanessa, stop referring to me as my lady." The vestant bowed Okay. I assume you meant deferently, but it's differently. The vestant bowed differently. "Yes, my queen." The cat-lizard Viking again commanded. "And don't call me queen." The vestant bowed again. "Yes, mistress." The bigger alien was practically growling more than talking now. "And don't call me mistress." Another bow. "Yes, my lady." Another growl. "Just call me Eric." Another bow. "Yes, Lady Eric." With an exasperated sigh, Eric gave up. "Just call me whatever you wish." The bow was lower and more formal, and the vestant's voice conveyed deep gratitude. "Thank you, my lady." As Eric turned towards Alan, he had the look of someone who'd suffered under a terrible burden for far too long. "Anyway, I'm pretty sure she's biologically incapable of addressing me in any other way. But Vanessa here has been by my side for as long as I can remember, and she's always done right by me, so I put up with it." Alan had begun to grin, thinking that maybe this giant alien wasn't so scary after all. But that thought faded when Eric directed a glare towards Alan that could have withered far braver men than himself. "Don't misunderstand me. She's the only one who gets a pass calling me that. Anyone who tries to call me a lady had better be faster than I am. And just so you know, there isn't a human alive faster than me." Eric's glare softened somewhat. enough that Ellen thought he might be joking, but not enough for him to test that theory. Ellen's mind was spinning. This was all too much to take in. Looking up at the giant alien, he said the first thing that came to mind. Your name is Eric? Really? I expected something more, I don't know, exotic? Eric glowered at Alan a moment, as if making up his mind about something before responding. Yeah, well, I was raised by a bunch of pirates to be a pit fighter. Same with Vanessa here, and they named both of us. Eventually we fought our way free and killed a bunch of pirates in the process. If you want to know more than that, you'll have to get me good and drunk first. But I should warn you, there isn't a human alive who could drink anywhere near enough to put me under the table. This very well might be the worst decision of his life, but Alan simply had to know more about this impossible duo. Well, Eric, Vanessa, welcome aboard. With a shake of Eric's massive hand, the deal was struck. As Alan watched Vanessa carry both sets of luggage aboard, he decided he needed to stock up on extra alcohol for his trip. If not for Eric, then certainly for himself. All right. Okay, that was actually almost exactly 30 minutes. Where's the part 2? I also assume that a Vestant is the same as the alien from Of Men and Spiders. Okay, distantly related. What you doing, Bart? Being all happy over there? Yeah, I would be interested in seeing a part 2 for this. Actually, I'd be more interested in this one than Of Men and Spiders, to be honest. Like, Of Men and Spiders is interesting, but I think that it's more interesting in context with the rest of the universe right now. And now I do kind of want to take a look at Of Men and Dragons, so we'll see about that. You thinking you're gonna hold a poll once you're done with Dragons to see where you go next? Ideas like which one you want to continue. I think that Ghost Ships sounds more interesting for me, but I also like the continuation of Spiders for reasons I've already told you about. I've also started thinking of a couple of different ways to start incorporating some references to other stories that are read here. As I've mentioned, the Dark Forest has a tendency to incorporate other parts of other stories, as most stories and writers will do. You'll do them both eventually, but you can only focus on one at a time. Yeah? Didn't you say you had like 8 books planned? And how long is each book? That is our last story for tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm going to enjoy and also not enjoy editing because I screwed up a ton on one of these. Little under 200k words. Gotcha. That probably means it's going to be a little over. How close are you to finishing book 2 at this point? Also, we've had a strangely small number of people today. Usually story nights tend to have a lot more. You're on chapter 35. I mean, I guess that's also a hard question for any writer because you know where you want the story to end, but not how you'll get there all the time. Ish. Kinda, give or take. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed story night tonight. You usually have 3 major arcs and a dozen smaller ones. How many pending stories do we have? I know that we had a lot. Story pending. I do probably need to reject some of the ones that have been on there for a while. Like, I'm pretty sure Hammer, we're not going to hear back from the author of Hammer, unfortunately. Which really sucks because apparently that's a pretty good story. I put that particular question out ages ago, and I don't think I've seen them online since then. Just one ship. I remember I needed to contact the actual owners of that because the author no longer owns the rights to it. I think I asked about a singular race and a human's innate ability, but I haven't heard back from them. Good old arcs. Is it arch or arcs? I've always heard it referred to as arc, and I never could figure out what the spelling was on that. The meaning of winning. I am totally going to have to ask about a bunch of these too. I really want to do the Great Erectus and the Fawn because I'm a big fan of the hominid. He's a fun dude. Also a total D-bag. And I think everything after Human's Innate Ability has not been asked about. So I will be going through a lot of these next stream, hopefully. I don't know how many of these stories will actually get approved. Figure if I want to tackle monster, the monster that is dragons, you could do a chapter at the end of each reading. Maybe fill in any weeks you're low. That's not a bad idea, actually. I wouldn't mind doing that. We can start that. Yeah, we can go ahead and start that next stream which would be next Monday, which would be the 27th. Okay. I got other stuff that I'm working on too, unfortunately. I mostly got Moonrise working. I say mostly because there's a notable section of Moonrise that I haven't been able to replicate. And that section is the UI. Because here's the deal about the Moonrise event. It is the only event that actually has a UI attached to it. And that's hard to replicate with my current level of understanding of, programming. But we'll see about that. This is going to take me a while to edit because I definitely made a lot of mistakes on one of the stories. I don't remember the name. Oh, humans are intergalactic cryptids. Honestly, that one made me laugh. Just humans are going to hug everything. At least one human is going to like it and think it's cuddly. Some are closer to 30. That's fine. As long as it doesn't go over an hour. I've had stories that go over an hour, and those are kind of rough. Just because I don't really have these moments between stories where I can just kind of relax. I think I will switch back to just chatting. Just chatting seemed to bring in some more people who were interested. But yeah. Depends on how much I'm okay with stopping on the occasional cliffhanger. Oh, cliffhangers are great. There's another storyline that the author specialized in cliffhangers. J.D. Pfister. So J.D. Pfister is one of the authors that I am currently supporting on Patreon, despite not reading his current work. I actually don't know. Their current work. And I just remember nearly every single story or nearly every single chapter ended in a cliffhanger. And as mad as it made me, it definitely was an effective way of making you keep reading. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here and see what I can do. This should be edited much sooner since I have more time on my hands right now. And I do want to get this out of the way so that I don't have to worry about it later in the week. So I'll just kind of be poking at it for just over the course of the next few days. But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed. I do also want to say thank you to all of my continued supporters. I am supported exclusively through Patreon, and it's really great, actually. So thank you to Tenace Games, Zebgrin, Slime Hunter, Walks with Gorillas, my dad, Kremlin Kev, Desalona, Miss Mango Plays, NBFF, Alpha Mango, and Kawoke. If anyone else wants to support me through Patreon, they can do so pretty easily. There is a link right here. I'm hoping that eventually I might actually be able to get enough support to just do this full time. And I would love to do this full time. It's just probably never going to happen. Anyway, yeah. Thank you to all those people. And I'm going to send you guys all off to someone else. I don't know who, though. Yeah, right? You always have a hobby that you're just like, I'm so much better at this than anything else. Why would I do anything else? And then it's just, oh, right, money. Speaking of which, I'm actually coming up for another phone interview pretty soon here, which makes me very happy. Oh, God. You know what? F it. Let's raid Kegel. He's doing Raid Shadow Legends. I know how you can stream this sort of stuff. I could do it. Frickin' money. All right. See you guys all later. Good luck to you.